All right, let's talk Los Angeles Chargers. Of course, under the new Harbaugh regime, they took big steps in 2024. And obviously, this offseason, they're trying to put themselves in a bigger position to make a deeper playoff run in 2025. They've been kind of quiet this offseason up to this point, but that doesn't mean the Chargers haven't been making some really smart, really solid strategic moves. We'll break down one in particular today that I think you Chargers fans will be really excited about. But first, I'm Nick, that's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, now that the first wave of massive moves has come and gone, and boy, there was just a flurry there. It seemed like every hour, 30 or 40 different, reports were dropping about signings, releasings, even some trades thrown in there. A lot of news to shake out over the past week or so. And lost in that news was a really solid strategic decision the Chargers made. Of course, Puna Ford left Los Angeles Chargers to go to the other LA team, the Rams. And in that decision, the Chargers decided to re-sign one of their former players. And this turns out to be a really good strategic move. First, let's jump into the report, then we'll dive deep into the analysis on the other side. This is a courtesy of NBC Sports. Defensive tackle Teair Tart will be staying put. Adam Schefter of ESPN reports that Tart has agreed to a new deal with the Chargers. Tart will return on a one-year contract worth only $5.5 million. Tart signed with the Chargers last August after spending the offseason with the Dolphins. He appeared in every game and had 29 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, a sack, an interception. That's pretty cool. A forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. All right, it really takes a deep analysis into the numbers to really explain why this was a smart move by the Chargers. And Miles, I'm going to hand that over to you in just a second. But first, Chargers fans, before you hear our reports, or maybe even after, if you wait to the end of the video, grade this move in your mind. The decision to move off of Puna Ford and go a little cheaper route by bringing back Tart. Grade it. You think it was a solid strategic move? Again, hear us out before you give your comments. Think it's an A? Do you not like it? It's an F? Think it's a wait and see? Give it a C? Wait, go through our analysis, see if you agree or disagree, then comment below your thoughts on this decision by the Chargers. But Miles, over to you now. Let's jump right into the numbers, break down what the Chargers were doing here.
Yeah, Nick. So I think this is the case here. You had a decision if you were the Chargers. You had Puna Ford, you had Teair Tart available. What are you going to do? Who are you going to bring back? And you kind of got to look at the numbers to see, because I'll say this first. We love Puna Ford. We think Puna Ford is a great player. And I'm not saying we don't like Teair Tart. I think Teair Tart's a great player as well. But when you look at the contracts, you break down the numbers, you break down the stats, I think you can see what the Chargers were doing here. And I think it was a really smart decision by them to make the choice they did. So let's get into the first chart here I have brought up. This is Puna Ford in the blue, Teair Tart in the orange, kind of showing the difference in stats. First up on the left-hand side, we have PFF run defense grade. You can see Ford, a little bit better run defender. He's pretty dang good, actually, at 80 PFF grade per run defense. And you see Tart a little bit lower, around the 69.7 mark for his run defense grade. So there's a little bit of a difference in the run defense grade, but it's fairly enough. You jump over to the other side, and you can see the PFF pass rush grade, where Puna Ford, not quite as good, 70 PFF pass rush grade, where Tart, on the other hand, pretty dang good, a 79.7 pass rush grade per Tart per PFF. So Tart a little bit better pass rusher than Puna Ford. So even trade-off here. Maybe you think, okay, there has to be more to it, and there is. We go for our second graph here, and I'm pulling up their average salary, APY, in millions per year. On the left, Puna Ford is about $9.2 million per year on average with his new salary that he got from the Rams. You look at Tart, $5.5 million, pretty easy, 1 year deal, easy to break those numbers down. But on the right, I have stats per million, which doesn't really make sense until I explain it. And what I did was took their overall PFF grades, and I divided that by dollars per million, so 5.5 or 9.2 respectively, to get how many stats or a quantifiable number of what performance the teams got per $1 million paid to the players. And as you can see, Puna Ford is lagging behind Teair Tart here a little bit. You can see Teair Tart on the right-hand side, much higher up. He actually gave 13.8 stat points per $1 million paid to him, where Puna Ford on the left-hand side only garnered 9.2 stats per $1 million paid to him through that contract. So overall, I think the Chargers, they got a guy who's a very good player. He's different than Puna Ford. I think he's better at some things. Puna Ford's better at some things. But overall, the Chargers getting more value out of the contract that they paid Teair Tart than the Rams are getting, or basically what they would have had to pay Poona Ford to keep him. They'd have to compete with whatever the Rams paid Poona Ford. I think this was a smart move. They made a really great choice, and I think Teair Tart is going to be a good addition to this Chargers team.
Yeah, look, and one of the things in question marks when it comes to Tart is what's going to happen when he gets more playing time, right? Obviously, a solid PFF grades. You broke down the numbers there. I think it's very clear on a value basis, not performance, just in terms of how they played Ford versus Tart, but on a value basis, the Tart move is the way to go. Of course, competing with the Rams, which they would have to do to bring back Poona Ford. But the big question mark is what's going to happen when Tart gets more playing time, when he takes on a bigger role. Will the stats stay the same? Will they get better? Maybe they'll get worse. And that's one of the question marks. Any player, when you bring them back and say, okay, you have more responsibilities, how will that player handle it? Well, one of the things we also did is we looked back and looked at Tart's prior 4 years. Because if you look at his performance and his playing time over that 4 year window, it equates to a little more than a season. So I think if you take an average of performance over the past 4 years, it gives you a good snapshot of what a roughly full season as a main contributor would look like for Tart. And then we compared Tart's performance with what I'm going to call the median defensive tackle. If you look at the top 60 defensive tackles in football, what are the median positions? So number 30, right? Good starter, quality player. When we say median, we think of a guy who'd be well worth to have on your team, and compare the two numbers. And let's go ahead and throw it up if you haven't already on the screen so people can see. And you can see we love charts on this channel, by the way. Big chart channel, big graph channel. We love Microsoft Excel. They should sponsor us. That's how much we use it. But you can see here the median defensive tackle versus Tart's 4 year average. Their overall grade is essentially identical. The run defense grade and the pass rush grade, again, Tart's 4 year average is slightly above the median defensive tackle for 2024. So what does that mean? It means if you look at Tart's snapshot of what a full season would look like, he's basically right at a top 30 defensive lineman in the NFL. And if you're getting a top 30 defensive lineman, defensive tackle, if you're getting a top 30 guy at that position for $5.5 million, that is a steal. That is a great value move. And that's one of the things that can propel a team to the next level. It's getting a player for 70% of the cost versus what you would have to go out in the market. So you get Poona Ford costs $9.5 million. You get Tart, who isn't quite as good as Poona Ford, but again, he's 60% as the cost of him. So if you get a player that's 80% of Ford at 60% of the cost, for example, that is a steal. You do that enough times, you build a really deep, talented roster, and that's exactly what the Chargers are setting themselves up to do here. Again, a lot more moves have to be made. There's still some holes to address. I'm really excited to see what the Chargers do for the draft, for example. They got a lot of options they can go there, but this is indicative. We saw it last offseason. We're seeing it in 2025 that the Charger strategy is really smart and pushing them in the right direction.
Yeah, Nick, and I think another thing we got to take into consideration is when we're making the decision, and the chart I showed earlier showed Poona Ford better run defender, basically Teair Tart better pass rusher. Like, that's how it broke down. If you want to, the summation of it. And when you look at this Chargers team and the decisions they have made, I think it's showing clear that the Chargers are trying to make themselves very balanced overall, especially across this defense. It's a 3-4, so front five, the five guys in the front of the defensive line. You look at Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack, a fantastic player, but he's a better run defender than he is pass rusher. I'm not saying he's a bad pass rusher, but he's 87.7 run defense grade to 78.9 pass rush grade. Both good, but clearly better on the run defense side of things.
So
Then
do you think that's a real number? Not to interrupt you, because he's a pass rusher by trade. Do you think he's gotten better against the run? Is that what's happened with age, or what are your thoughts there? Because that's surprising to me. I would have thought it would have been the opposite.
yeah, I think traditionally when I look at Khalil Mack, what he brings to the table, I'd think in my head, oh, this guy's pass rusher. He's been getting sacks over the last few years of his career. But even when you go look at last year as well, 2023, I'm talking about, he was close still, but a 90.8 run defense grade for him,
Wow.
86.3 pass rush grade. And you look at the snaps, he's got more pass rush snaps. Like in 2023, 534 pass rushing snaps to 347 run defense snaps. But he has a good amount of run defense snaps, enough to where it's meaningful numbers, I believe. So
Yeah.
I think, like you said, he's gotten better. He's been a solid pass rusher, but he's gotten really great in run defense as well. And Tart complements a great, better pass rusher. A guy that specializes pass rush in the defense, the middle of the defense. Khalil Mack really becoming a great run defender as well.
Yeah, I'm really blown away by those numbers, to be totally honest with you, right? I would have said Khalil Mack would have been like a 60 in the run defense grade and like an 85 or 90 in the pass rush grade. But I do think it speaks to your larger point of a well-balanced football team. And that's sort of a Harbaugh staple. That's an Ortiz staple coming from the Baltimore Ravens, is building a team. And we see this, and we talked about this with the Chiefs when they were, of course, going to 3 straight Super Bowls, is the real story about the Kansas City Chiefs isn't that they're extremely talented across the board. Obviously, Mahomes is special. Chargers fans, you're very well aware of the fact, very well aware of that fact, and you've got your own guy in Herbert, of course. But it's the fact that they don't have any real clear weakness. They're just decent everywhere. And that's what the Chargers are building here, at least on defense, the way things are looking. They've got a few key stars, right? Bringing back Mac for a year, and they got some young guys. We'll see how they break out. But overall, it looks like the Chargers are trying to build a weakness-free team and not putting themselves in long-term cap difficulties. So that way they have the opportunity to really make some big moves or to lock down some stars in the future, looking at maybe McConkey, Joe Alt, right? Those guys, I know they just finished up their rookie seasons, but they look like future superstars. I think the Chargers are they're playing the long game approach overall in terms of their cap structure, very team friendly kind of deals, but they're doing it in such a way that they're still getting a lot of value and productivity. And that's really important because you can be long term focused, but if you bring in crappy players and you go 5-12 every year, it's going to fall apart, right? Everyone will get fired. You'll have to retool everything. You'll have to throw out your entire process. But if you bring in high value players and keep winning games, making deeper playoff pushes, and then when the moment is there to strike and make huge deals to push you over the top and you're ready to take advantage of it, that's how greatness happens. That's how you go on winning multiple division titles and making deep playoff pushes year after year after year. This is a big Joe Ortiz strategy. He did it with the Ravens, learning from the Baltimore strategy. Of course, they're in contention basically every single season. It looks like that same model is being followed in LA with, of course, Harbaugh running the show in terms of the coaching side. This is a really solid offseason. It's not making the big headlines, of course, but so far it's been a really solid strategic offseason by the Los Angeles Chargers. A lot of moves left to be made, but this is good stuff for LA as they get ready to take a big leap in 2025.